We think, oh, thank you. We have a fun agenda today, some updates on what's new in schools and IRA land, which is sort of a standing part of our agenda. We are going to do a quick case study on, thanks Riley, on just a school, our district that's thinking about these ITCs. And then we're going to try to have like a broader, more open-ended conversation of just like, where are we, kind of collectively and individually are in the work of raising awareness among education leaders about the opportunity for schools in the IRA, and going to invite folks that are, have things in the works, to share out, and or to, if you have questions or, observations to share as well. We have a few norms that we've been trying to just remind ourselves of at the top of each of these calls, asking everyone just to participate with respect, humility, and generosity of spirit, that we are all learners and bringing important and diverse perspectives to the conversation. We are trying to default to cameras on and microphones off. Understand when you need to be off camera for, whatever reason, but generally just trying to make this an interactive space where we are humans as much as we can be in a space like this, and engaged, that we try to share the air over the course of the hour. It goes quick, and trying to make sure that there's space for different voices, as well as, and feel free to use the chat as well. And we are recording the calls, and we just put them up on our YouTube channel for, and send them out to the broader group of folks that have wanted to be engaged in this. So we just started noting that off the top. And we have two new members of the Undaunted team that you may be kind of hearing from as, our partners, and we just wanted to take a minute. We're really excited about them. So I wanted to just welcome Jaime Cobham and Stephanie Seidman, and give them just, 30 seconds each to say hello to the group. So Jaime, do you want to kick it off?
Thanks, Jonathan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jaime Cobham. I am the new policy associate for the Undaunted team. Coming to this work most recently from working on Capitol Hill, I was a legislative assistant for Congressman Jamal Bowman, where I had the opportunity to work on the original introduction of the Green New Deal for public schools. And I'm very excited to take that experience to this team and to this group here. And I'll pass it over to Stephanie.
Thanks so much, Jaime. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Seidman. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the new program director at Undaunted. I am coming here having spent the last decade working in public education as a teacher and instructional leader with a lens on environmental education and climate justice. I'm really excited to be joining this team and working on programming and advocacy, specifically in California for now. Thanks so much.
Great. So Sarah Ross, do you want to take us into what's new in schools and the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yes, what's new? Okay, well, you all can see some of it here. No one's missed, and I did check right before we got on this call. We didn't miss the pre-filing registration portal that I know you are all holding your breath waiting for from the IRS, so that our schools can start to pre-file for getting some money. We haven't missed it yet. It is not out yet. What did come out is the notice that the Department of Energy will start accepting applications for the one part of the investment tax credit that does have limited capacity and that requires a separate application. This, you might recall, specifically the low income communities bonus adder that's only for solar and wind. I do know some schools that are applying for this, for the solar piece. Our friends at Miami-Dade reached out about this tax credit in particular, or this bonus adder. The DOE announced that they will start accepting applications on the 19th. If you click on that link, you will get to that website. I went and clicked on the accepting applications hyperlink, and it took me to under construction. So it's not up yet, but we're one step closer, and presumably before the 19th, that under construction site will turn into, a place where schools and other entities that are going after that low income bonus can start to put in for that. I think we do expect it to be heavily subscribed, and it's going to be competitive, but we shall see. We're all learning. The other thing that's happened since we last met is the EPA announced their two competitions for the climate pollution reduction grants that I learned from some of you all about in previous calls, it's $4.6 billion that's getting spread across states in what they're calling their general competition, and a second one for tribes and territories. So that's on the way, and you can look, if you click on that link, it'll take you more towards, you can see the whole kind of timeline of when those climate pollution reduction grants, how that process will unfold over the coming months. The other thing that's happening, if any of you are in greenhouse gas reduction land, you know that it is a ferociously busy time, because the 12th is when the organizations, the nonprofits that are going to apply to lead the distribution of those $27 billion are all due to the EPA, those responses. So some of us, Undaunted among them, are submitting letters of support for some of the organizations that are putting in to administer some of those dollars. Those, entities will be selected, for those competitions, and next spring we'll start to see stuff move further out into the real world. Right now, it's still, kind of out on the horizon and not a real thing for schools in this moment, but on the horizon. What did I miss? What else is new? Sarah, can you talk about the 1019 window for IGs?
You want me to explain my question?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I missed something important. Karen, tell us.
Well, tell it might be stronger than I'm willing to say, but I will share what I have heard, and then I'm trying to verify it. So, my understanding is that when that window opens to apply for the low income bump, October 19th, for the 30 days following October 19th, any days that you put in an application, it'll all count as being on the same day. In other words, the window's open for 30 days, after which closes, which is not to say you can't apply, but like that group of all the applicants are then treated together, and then everyone who applies after is treated after.
Got it.
Just like it. And that's what I'm trying to make sure I understand before October 19th, so that I know whether that's really accurate.
That is more detail. You have more detail than I do, and I don't know the answer to that. I
I
do.
saw a lot of
Okay.
nodding heads though. Michelle and Will,
Okay.
you both nodded as if you knew what Karen was talking about. Do you agree? No, you didn't. Okay. Okay.
I just heard that mentioned on the webinar that was hosted on Friday, but no, not that many details other than that.
Okay, and I see its applications will start being accepted at 9 a.m. Eastern time on the 19th. So a little more detail here. I'm looking at an email from a law firm who's offering assistance pulling together an application this month. And yeah, the 30 days is quoted in here too. So initial 30-day application window for all 4 categories. Yeah. We do reflect this update on our website. So that's one piece that's up to date. So folks can go there and get linked to that portal. Anything else? Oh yes, Sue, very good call. You want to jump on and mention the additional 500 million? 600.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm on 2 devices. Yeah, so round 3 of Clean School Bus Program was announced. It's going to be another rebate round, 500 million. Yeah, a few changes, but good to see that moving out. We think it's a little less favorable to electric buses, but still good to see that moving forward. Applications are due in January. It'll be a busy time. And then the same day that came out, New York announced the first tranche of their Bond Act funding. The total is 500 million, but they announced that they're going to release, I think it's in November, applications for the first 100 million. Happy to see that moving forward. I could go into a lot more detail, but just, those are important steps, which is great.
Carolina, did you want to jump in?
Oh, I think Sue covered it. I mean, if folks are interested, just the main highlight is that the rebates are just a lot easier to apply for, and they're really ideal, I would say, for school districts that are looking at maybe their first electric school bus, or they have a much smaller fleet. The application is just leagues easier, and there's plenty of time. And so we do have some resources from the Alliance. I can share the toolkit if anyone is interested in spreading the word about this funding opportunity to school districts, certainly trying to make sure that there's still great interest in electric school buses. So I put the link in the chat. Feel free to request access if you think you might want to plug that opportunity.
Carolina, I want to follow you. You said easier. Is this easier than like the initial grant round that they did that was more like easier compared to what? What's the comp here when you say it's easier?
Yeah, good question. So when they launched in 2022, they did a round of rebates, and this is very similar to that. Easy one-page application. You just have to like know what buses you want to replace, you know, up to 25. Then in 2023, earlier this year, they did a grants round, and that was like very competitive, 15-page application, lots and lots of requirements. Rebates are lottery based, and so if you're in, you're in. And so it's just a lot easier for school districts that are really strapped for time.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And Sue, when you said a little less favorable for electric buses, because you're saying compared to the low emission buses, which are also technically part of this competition, is that what you meant by a little less favorable, you think, for electric?
Yeah, well, and you know, Carolina and we and others are trying to still sift through the way that they're arranging the lottery and the prioritization that they're giving. And it seems like there's the potential for, it's just weighted a little bit more the way they're running the lottery, which is like every state applies, the highest ranking application from each state, regardless of the fuel mix, gets chosen. And so that creates a little bit of a different context than what they had in the original rebate round, which was, in our estimation, a little more favorable to electric buses. But we are still planning and hoping that a lot of really solid applications come in. If you know anyone in Wyoming, he'd love to talk to you, right, Carolina? The one state in the union does not have an electric school bus.
Got it. Interesting.
Yet.
And will you just refresh my memory, guys? This is if a school district contracts out for the buses, how does that like ownership model play in with this most recent round of funding?
Third-party applicants can apply. So dealers, manufacturers, private school bus fleets, charge management companies, they can all apply for funding as well. Same limit, 25 school buses. And so either the private bus fleet, you know, a first student, they can apply directly, or the school district can apply and then pass on the funding to their contractor. So both options are available.
Got it. So I'm hearing there's no excuses.
No, this is easy. Like if you have a school district that's ever been like, oh, I'm curious about electric school buses, this is the opportunity for them, because the other opportunities are a lot harder. And we are expecting that EPA funding is going to continue to lower the incentive amounts that will be offered each year, because they're trying to get the prices down for electric school buses. So this is a bit of a carrot and stick approach.
Got it. Brian, hop off mute and ask your question, if you would.
I'd heard Jenny was in a meeting before the announcement that there might be favoring toward rural communities. Is that true? Is that explicit? Is it just sort of implied?
No,
Places
absolutely.
like Wyoming?
Explicit. Yeah, it's in the law that it's in the text for the law that they have to prioritize low income, which they're considering as school districts with 20% or more students in poverty, rural school districts, and tribal school districts. So there is actually a list, and I can put that in the chat, of the school districts that are prioritized. There are additionally some that Title I funded schools that are very large that might not end up in that 20% threshold. They can also self-certify as low income, but rural is definitely one of those prioritizations.
Great. What else did I miss? The environmental ed grants, those are outside of IRA, but certainly good to know about. Yeah. Anything else?
Anna just put something in the chat, Sarah, on prevailing wage and apprenticeship.
Oh, I lost my chat.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
Do you want to come off and say anything about that?
Please.
Sure, yeah, just for folks who are kind of tracking the labor standards and like workforce elements of the direct pay opportunities for schools, the IRS issued draft guidance on this in late August, and the comment period is open till October 30th, and that's essentially around kind of how districts and their contractors will be expected to kind of document apprenticeship hours and wages for work that would require those labor standards in order to achieve the full possible tax credit. So, you know, if they have solar projects that are more than 1 megawatt, or for energy efficiency projects. And yeah, we've heard from some districts that, you know, they want to have a lot of clarity about exactly what kind of documentation they're expected to submit, because right now the proposed guidance is that it would be submitted kind of at the end of the project once it's put into service. And so they want to be sure they understand from the outset of project development what to require from their contractors and that sort of thing.
Right, that makes sense. And then, and while we have you, domestic content, we're still waiting on more guidance on that. Is that right? There was an initial guidance document. Can you remind me where we are in domestic content?
That's right. Jay, my colleague Jay is also on the call. Do you recall if we have an update on that?
I haven't seen anything since the summer. So I imagine it's where everything else is, still waiting for a final.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say, but we are still waiting on some more stuff there, yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. Great, you guys told me what I missed, so much good stuff. Let's transition, are we ready to go to the next part of the agenda, or someone else have a burning item on what's new that I missed or that you want to add on? Going once, going twice.
Sue, there was one thing, oh yeah, it was, Sue, you had a thought around a collaboration opportunity. Do you want to just put that out into the world?
We can't hear you.
Oh, you might be on mute.
Sorry, I didn't have this on I don't know where we are in the agenda on this, but back on the CPRG, those climate pollution reduction grants, is there any reactions, thought, or conversation we want to have about whether or not a group effort of any sort to organize around an application, or some, you know, fill in the blank there? I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I'm very, very, very vaguely familiar with an effort of another convening group of organizations that are doing some similar work, and it seemed like there might be, you know, there might be an appetite here, but I'm not sure. They say that.
I would love to learn more about what that might look like, because my understanding, that may be wrong, or maybe there's some more creative takes on it, is that states are the recipients of these, yeah. Right? So are we kind of like working underneath a state application, or are we organizing? Yeah, say more, help me understand.
Yeah, the idea is, and again, we'll have to, I would want to learn more myself, is I guess it's states, local governments, and municipalities, and we're checking to see that school districts would apply. Maybe people know that, yes, they definitely can apply, or are eligible, I should say. And the idea would be there would be some group of NGOs that help identify some group of let's say, school districts that might have a suite of things that they want to put in. And so there's sort of this value in, or maybe it's individually, I'm not sure the thresholds for those awards, but, you know, basically collectively helping applications that go into that pod.
Karen, jump in.
Thanks. So again, like last time, my understanding, I was going to be careful as we're all navigating the maze together, is that for these grants, it's like the kind of ideal set of applicants is basically a partnership among a couple of different entities, a local government entity, a nonprofit, a university, a couple of local government entities, to go after goals that were developed with that first round of planning that states got. So states now have, or states that got the grant now have climate goals, or they will soon have to publish goals. And this is now a whole round of money to support achieving those goals. And so this is something where schools are definitely eligible. I would feel nervous saying definitely again and when it comes to IRA, but schools are eligible from what I read. And the notion that there might be some way to like help schools play in that space, partner with their local government, partner with relevant partners, and go after those goals, I think is that I'm certainly interested in having that conversation, understanding that it's not a national effort that school districts can sign up for. It is a state level thing. They have to find like their natural group within their state. Hope that's helpful.
If I can jump in here, I'm having trouble, sorry, finding the raise hand button, but actually through some other line of partners, I was in a meeting with our county government here in Las Vegas because they're applying for this. And the way that they explained it was basically all the states had to submit if they wanted to an application for the planning phase. And then now they got funding to do that. And now there's additional funding, right, to do the implementation phase. But it sounded like they needed to form a coalition with others, but who or what they formed a coalition was very, I guess it was just really flexible. And so they're forming a coalition, for example, with other local governments to determine how they want to, what they want to include in this priority climate action plan, something like that, PCAP, I think they're calling it. But it really sounded like it's whoever, like, it just sounded like it's very government based, but like county and state governments. Like they mentioned, you know, like a specific agency and the state received funding and they received funding because that's who they named in the initial application for the planning phase. And I'm not an expert in this whatsoever, but like we're literally talking to the county about like, okay, like what are you thinking you would put in there? And so I don't know if there's a way to see what they submitted in that original planning phase to see which municipal entities might actually be vying for that money, because it sounds like otherwise it's, you know, very limited. And I don't imagine that school districts might have been included in that. But there might be some opportunity, but the way they made it sound was like the county's going to figure it out and they're going to submit their opportunity and it's going to be based on their existing climate plan, which doesn't really involve school buses. So yeah, just wanted to share that perspective.
And
well, I was
Mary,
gonna say that.
I have,
Oh, yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Well,
Go
no,
ahead, Susan.
I mean, maybe just again, and this is something, literally, this was a thought that came up today. So you can tell it wasn't really well formed on our part, but maybe just through a little more digging, we could come back to this group or see, you know, maybe there is the plan that has the school districts or there's room there. I can appreciate that, you know, it's this trough that everybody's going to be jumping at and it might be challenging. So that's really helpful insight on that.
Yeah, it seems like a few of us exploring a few different states. I'm happy to explore in Massachusetts, you know, what that might look like, and others who have connections with or strong in other states could explore. And, you know, we could see where there might be a geography where a group of us could move things. Jonathan, Mary, were there other things?
I was just going to say, Mary, I recall a list at some point in my life of all of the states and which agency is the lead for these grants. And if I can find that website or that list, I'll send it out to folks. Or if anybody else, if anybody on this call was the person who shared that with me. But yeah, it's around.
Is that what Anna just dropped in, maybe?
Maybe.
Okay. I'm going to keep moving. We got more to cover. We are going to try out a new thing, which is a quick 5 minutes where the rubber meets the road in a real project that's trying to kind of sort of maybe thinking about actually putting some portion of the IRA to use in a school project. So Riley from New Buildings Institute has kindly offered to be our guinea pig here. Let me see if I can click into the slide, or Jonathan, do you want me to click into the slide and share while I'm chatting through here? So we're just going to model doing a quick 5 minutes to give those of us who are not on the front lines some sense of actually what's happening on the front lines. And when I think of the front lines of this work, I certainly think of Riley. So it's good that you're starting us out. Riley shared 2 slides with us about 2 different districts. We're going to focus on the second one for now, but she may do some comparing and contrasting. And we're just going to run through this. We're going to try and keep to 5 minutes. We'll, there maybe be a minute or 2 for questions at the end. So Riley, in a nutshell, what is the project, again, this Midwest district that they are thinking about? What IRA eligible technologies are they considering?
This one's really easy. They're just considering, at this point, a geothermal system to replace some aging gas infrastructure. I think there will be more, but this is like where they're getting started.
Yeah. And the kind of answer hints at like, that's the pinch, is it's aging, they got to replace it. So they're in a investment decision kind of a mindset here.
Yes, they are. They're being proactive instead of reactive, which is good.
Cool. How did they learn about the IRA?
I think it was originally actually from Anissa from your series that USGBC hosted. There's also a lot of materials just moving around. So there's just a lot of interest. There's sort of like this murmuring swell moving through districts. Also, I'll kudos Anissa again that your Yammer site, I think, is quite useful in this case as well.
How is IRA, or how do you see the IRA impacting the decision making, if at all?
So this one is tricky, and this is why I had 2 case studies, because it's kind of different in both. This one right now, it's really supported by the facilities department. So the facilities and this person I talked to, I intentionally anonymize these, by the way, because part of the issue here is stakeholders are reactive to this, where the facilities department is down. They're super excited to go after IRA money because this would not happen. They could not convince anyone if there was not money on the table.
Yeah.
However, because it's in a relatively conservative-ish community in the Midwest, the stakeholders in the community is not super supportive. They're not super supportive of anything coming out of the federal government, especially not the Inflation Reduction Act. So one side is let's do it. And the other side says, I don't know about that. Is it really real? The other thing too, that's not actually on here, it's on the other slide, is there's sort of a distrust in many districts, or a confusion about who the right person is to give them advice and support.
Yeah.
You see there's something in the chat, I will get to that. But they're not sure who the right person is to give advice and support, because with money in this space comes a lot of people. It's like magic, right? And so there's a lot of people approaching districts to say I can help you with the IRA. Let's talk about it. And they just don't really know what the right answer is.
Great. Let me open it up. Any quick questions for Riley? Thank you so much for bringing the real rubber meets the road to this group. I think for those of us that are not in projects, it's really useful to hear, no kidding, how these conversations are going. What do folks want to ask Riley quickly? Time for one question or so.
I'm curious how the district is sorting through the information and the incoming. Do they have how are they figuring out these questions you just raised about the viability of the project and who they trust to help them with it?
I think there's 2 different answers to that. The viability of the project, they are sort of leaning on, they do have an in-house, it's a mid-sized district that does have a small sustainability department. So they're relying on some in-house knowledge to be able to sort of move towards geothermal. That wasn't just I see it in the IRA, I'm going to go this route. That was in the plans before. IRA is kind of an additive. But then, it's vendors that are the ones offering help. I think I will call out a little bit that I think they're getting approached by several ESCOs, energy services companies, architects, engineers. And it's from the other case study from the other district too, that's a larger urban district, is seeing the same thing, where they're getting approached by a lot of people looking for that 179D especially.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Awesome. Thank you, Riley. Maybe we'll do this again if folks like it. Let's switch gears. I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Jonathan. Oh, you're on mute, friend.
Thanks. So we wanted to have a conversation as we sort of head into the rest of the fall or this last quarter of the year, you know, we still have this observation. We are still having conversations where we're the first ones, you know, sharing about like the intersection around school infrastructure and the IRA. So our observation is that folks are still not aware. And I think transitioning from like Riley's, you know, story of it's not just that they're not aware, even if they are aware, there's still a lot of mistrust or disbelief that this is, you know, happening. And wanted to sort of open up, you know, share again, here's where we're headed. And also invite others to share how you're thinking about this, you know, kind of the gap and what's on tap for the quarter ahead. So we've got the website, we got some new resources today. We're going to keep, you know, updating that, and appreciate folks continuing to send things our way that you see that could be useful: webinars, briefs, you know, updates from federal agencies. We have a first webinar coming up in partnership with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, you know, specifically where they are convening their school building, you know, community in the state with their list. And we'll be sharing, and, you know, they'll be doing a district case study with some engineer and architectural partners. And we think we have bandwidth to try to do that, you know, build those kinds of partnerships and do a few more of those kinds of webinars where we partner with a state agency to raise awareness, like leveraging their communications channels. And then, you know, a lighter lift for us is just being in the room for a briefing or a conversation with a well-positioned, you know, state, you know, agency leader to brief them on this stuff. And then the fourth kind of piece of our strategy right now is we are still, you know, planning to work on this policy brief. Appreciate the offers last month for some partnership and support on that. And we still plan to take you up on that, you know, Mary, Sue, you know, others on that project. So that's a little bit about kind of where we're headed, but can we just invite, you know, some shares? How are folks thinking about this gap in awareness and or trust, and what is on your agenda for the next few months to try to address it? Mary?
I'm just, if I'm connecting the dots from the early discussion about the application not being out yet, I'm thinking that maybe when the application is actually there, that some of the trust issues will be addressed, as well as it's a great vehicle for awareness as well. So I'm wondering, you know, whether or not if that's really out soon, that's one thing. And then the other thing, and I don't know whether folks have followed up on it, but because it's a fiscal 23 and initiates, you can get money. So, you know, trying to find out from folks who have already put in, you know, geothermal systems, because they're definitely getting put in, or solar, whatever, that might be also kind of on a good place to start, because people are going to say, well, who did what, or, you know, what was done, or did they get anything? You know, it's really going to, you know, the proof is going to be in the checks that come back. So really trying to locate those, I think, would be an important thing. And we can certainly reach out to the state directors when we're with them in November. But anyway, that would be, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, Anissa?
Just, we have a couple of opportunities to speak to school district people coming up. So we'll be at the K-12 Facilities Forum in Austin. Andrea with Department of Ed will be there leading a panel on federal funding for schools, but we're also leading like a discussion section on it. And then we have held a really long session time at the Green Schools Conference for federal funding, like kind of workshopping with the attendees there. So got some opportunity to talk to folks and kind of get them thinking more realistically about it. Hopefully that's March 5th through 7th in Santa Fe. And I'm hoping that by March, we have a couple more examples on hand of districts that are sort of trying to get out in front of this. So hopefully we can highlight some actual examples for folks during that session.
Great. Who else?
I can go ahead and share. So, in 2 weeks, we're having our annual conference at National Harbor Gaylord area. And we're gonna have several hundred, school business officials at the event. There are some education sessions that talk about, electric school buses and school construction projects, and that kind of in its own piecemeal way we'll be talking about the IRA and how it can be leveraged in those contexts. I'm also going to be giving a federal update with what's going on with some of these programs. So if there are super high level items where it's like, these are probably going to be the most helpful things to like really just push out to be able to share a link to and, help folks to explore more if there's a specific like project or avenue that they want to look into more. I'm happy to, include some extra resources on the slides that, I share out for that. But just want to say thank you to everyone who has, kind of just shared updates anecdotally on today's call, because I am taking copious notes just to make sure that, I'm getting some of this information out to folks. But if, there's any opportunities, to do webinars or share content or something on this, please, reach out to me. I'll try to see if there's any ways that we could share this with districts.
It looks like WRI. Sue has something in the chat. Brian has something in the chat. Thanks. David, do you have a thought over at AFT about where you are on leveraging your network to raise awareness?
Am I muted or not? Hi, I'm Dave Boundy from the American Federation of Teachers. So we represent the teachers in many of the bigger cities in the country, and about 1.5 million of them. So we're going to try and organize a national meeting of all our local and state leaders in the next few months, because even we need to get them sort of up to date of where all the information is, because the conversations they're having with their, the folks who school district leaders, even municipalities, no one actually either fully understands this, and like everyone says, so many people just don't believe it. So we're going to have to bring everyone in and sort of run through what the plans are going to be like. I'll probably be reaching out to many people if we can pull this off. It's not done yet. If I can pull this off, there's so much expertise basically in this convening to bring to the meeting. I would love to do it even at a school where that is fully transformed and clean, so that we could actually do almost like a model case, like, of how you would apply to get all this money back. Even if the school was built 4 years ago, I don't care. I just want to run through how the numbers work so that make people believe this.
Great. Well, I see a lot of nodding heads, so keep us, all in the loop on how that develops. Right. Thanks for your leadership, and let us know how we can all help. I'm just looking around CJNRC. Jay or Anna, do you have an update or where you all are with sort of your campaigns or awareness?
Sure. Yeah, I can
go for it, Anna.
I was gonna say I can give a very quick update, but I know we also had some specific challenges and questions we were hoping to bring to this space that maybe we could workshop with folks. Yeah, we're working with our state coalitions and a couple of specific districts. We're excited right now by some of the work that's moving forward in Bridgeport and hopefully in Chicago. So some kind of larger and mid-sized districts, and then also kind of preparing for the 2024 legislative session, and of course, like engaging in all of the rulemaking that's happening around the labor standards associated with the tax credit. So if anyone is interested to engage more particularly in the guidance around labor standards, definitely like reach out. Would love to have a conversation with you. And then we've had some recent conversations with some districts that have brought up some questions around operations and maintenance of some of these systems that I think maybe Jay, you can dive into a little bit more. And we'd love to hear if people in this group have some guidance for us on how you're approaching this for districts.
Yeah, so I mean, like before IRA, typically the best way you can get solar PV on your schools is through power purchase agreement. But now that you can get the value of the tax credits through direct pay, it makes a lot more sense to own your own solar systems. But then some of the schools that we're talking to feel sort of wary of what that means in terms of the operations and maintenance risk being shifted to them, because that's what the PPA people have been selling. They've been saying, we're going to take the operations and maintenance risk off of you. But of course, they do that at a very high premium, which is why, and given everything that we understand about solar, no moving parts, relatively, there's good warranties, and relative to how much they save you, operations and maintenance is really negligible. But it would be helpful, I think, for us to get some sort of testimony from school districts that have owned solar systems themselves pre-IRA, which they're definitely out there. And I've found RFPs for school districts looking to own solar, and also they'll sometimes in those RFPs they'll contract with installer for operations maintenance. So like stuff like that just like helps assure them that this is kind of a solved issue. If anyone has anything like that, if they're in touch with schools that have experience owning solar, we would definitely love to chat.
Does anyone know of districts that own their own solar? I've seen some that own that, but they're really small, almost kind of demonstration arrays, as opposed to like 300 megawatts or 300 kilowatts rather. Do folks know of districts that own their own solar and have for a bit of time with some experience under their belt? Seems like a question for Tish. Anissa, I feel like you're about to say something you're thinking.
Yeah, I know that we do, because I've heard districts in our network present on that, but I couldn't name them because Phoebe has those in her brain.
Yeah.
But I could pull some forward from her if we want to have some examples.
Got it. Karen saying that Denver owns some. Jay, it's a really interesting question. And what I put in the chat, I'm watching a district wrestle with this question right now. And just for those of you that are interested to see kind of the economics of ownership versus third-party ownership, the thing that I put in the chat, if you flip to slides 9 and 10, you see kind of the punchline, which is, $1.2 million of savings over 25 years if they do the PPA route, and $2.1 million of savings if they own it themselves. So it's almost $1 million worth of value that they're, giving up going the PPA route. That said, in the ownership route, they have to come up with, the money up front to pay for it. And I just don't know that districts and municipalities are going to be up for making that upfront investment. So, this town is wrestling with this right now. The school has kind of gone to their town to say, do you guys want to be in the ownership of solar business or not? Do you guys want to be in the invest for solar business or not? One way or another, this district wants to go solar because they're going to put in geothermal and they're thinking about electric school buses. So the district is kind of like agnostic. And they just want to get the temperature of their broader community in terms of their appetite for making this type of investment. And I will say that Select did say, if you want to own it yourself, that's fine. And you just hire us for a service agreement. So I doubt that service agreement is going to close $1 million, $900K gap. So it does seem like there would still be some financial upside for the district to own it. Karen, you want to jump in?
I'm so glad you're raising this because I keep hearing this, like, so one of the developers we're working with just use language around, like, you don't have to own this non-core asset. And school districts and communities are used to school districts owning buildings and the operating systems in those buildings. And so I really think that the kind of pre-IRA third-party ownership due to the tax equity financing differential has really kind of skewed the market. But a lot of communities are really used to issuing bonds to do capital work on their schools. And this doesn't have to be different. So I know I'm like on the soapbox to the choir here, but how we describe this dilemma and how we describe this set of choices, I think is really, really important. And it's fine for a district to say, you know what, we don't want to own it, but not because it's a hassle and not because it sounds cheaper to not pay any money. They should decide they don't want to own it because of their capital allocation decisions across all of the decisions they need to make.
Right.
Not because somebody said, hey, zero money down. Like, so I'm just really glad you're raising this. And it's something that we're like right in the middle of the conversation about right now.
Yeah. I feel like this is like ripe for like a 2-pager, you know, that like kind of has like frames the issues and some of the trade-offs, and then has a couple examples, you know, as a tool that folks could use in case anybody wants, you know, needs a project this fall. Yeah.
I think it's right for a calculator, and I want to ask somebody else to make that calculator, not me.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I had to ask for this slide number 10 that showed the ownership option, because the first version that the consultants gave the district did not include that. I was like, and put the other slide in too. Thank you very much. He was like, okay, Sarah, for you, I'll do it. But like, had I not been there to kind of push, it would not have happened. And you see, you know, some sense of why the financial gains are pretty juicy. I will mention the economics are very juicy in this case, one, because of Northeast power being expensive, but two, because this is an example of an energy community. So they're going to get that extra 10% adder on their geothermal, and they're going to get the extra 10% adder on their solar. So the economics are just darn lovely.
I'm curious, just in terms of like procurement itself, like I've never worked for a school, like, is it, once they know they want solar, is it fairly clear how they're going to get it and like what are the best practices for procurement? Or is that something that like we should be providing, like, here's the things that you should be asking for in your installer, in your operations and maintenance contract? Because that was also kind of like a concern that we were dancing around.
Aaron, did you want to speak to that, or Anissa? I can tell. Yeah.
Anissa, go ahead. I don't want to talk.
We were both nodding yes. The schools schools need all the help that we can give in understanding how to procure things and what to ask for, because they're still not used to purchasing solar, and they need a lot of assistance and handholding.
And I'll just add to that, like I would agree. And like best practices are great, because once, you know, a couple school districts get it figured out, they talk to each other. Like they share, like, here's the RFP that, you know, we did, and then, you know, other districts will take that template and tweak it, because sometimes it's, you know, the only pool of expertise they really have to work from, you know, to try to apply to their own situation. So anything that's like tips, tools, templates are always welcome.
I'll just mention on the procurement, Jay, because it is a dicey one. What's interesting here in Massachusetts, and maybe a model for other states, is there is this nonprofit power options. If you scroll to some of the earlier slides in the deck I put in, you know, basically the state created a competition for this company to win a 3-year contract where they're on basically a state bid list, so that if this school district wants to proceed with solar, they don't have to do more kind of onerous, you know, kind of 3-bid kind of story. These people are already pre-wired. You know, there are good and bad things about that, but certainly from the perspective of ease of procurement, this is going to make it really easy. This structure is going to make it very easy for schools to go solar. There may be other downsides, right? These people now kind of have cornered their market on the municipal solar installation business. So there's that, but from an ease of procurement, it's a model that's going to make it really easy for this district to move forward.
Yeah, that's a great solution, Sarah. I pasted in the chat Gen 180's procurement guidance, just because we would go there with school districts before we tried to make our own.
So this is a great use of this space. Thanks everybody for jumping in on these questions. Are there other orgs that want to share or preview kind of what's ahead for them around awareness building or, this fall programmatically? Just looking, rewiring or MBI. Who else haven't we heard from? Carolina, go ahead.
I was going to share, I think what we're going to focus on, just having heard from the last couple of EPA rounds, and I know that Sue and the WRI team have had similar experiences, is just the need to educate school boards, because they are in a lot of cases, the deciding factor, right? Or like the approvers. What we've been hearing from advocates is that showing up at a school board meeting or asking to present at a school board meeting can be beneficial, as opposed to, trying to individual contact with the school district, because then everybody that you need is kind of in the room. So we're going to be trying to focus a lot more on that school board outreach. A lot of our member organizations are already doing that, but trying to find better ways to do that and resource that. And then trying to think of other trusted messengers that school districts really listen to. I know folks have listed a number of conferences and associations. Folks will try to do additional education, but as someone just mentioned, to school districts, we think that that's like the number one person they trust the most is other school districts that have done it. At least that's been our case with electric school buses. It's just that peer-to-peer learning is absolutely critical. And so I know that CalSTART has working groups and WRI has cohorts, and we're trying to, usher as many people to those opportunities to hear from others. The EPA Clean School Bus staff has also picked up on that. And so they're doing a lot more webinars with school districts that have been awarded in the past. So they just did one earlier today where they had, I think, 4 or 5 school districts that got an award last year talk about what their process was like and things like that. I don't know how well attended those webinars are, because obviously EPA has those numbers and we don't, but we find that school districts just are more likely to believe other school districts the most. And so that's something that we're really going to focus on. I know WRI also has like an ambassadors program, which is fantastic, but like finding other opportunities like that to really highlight and develop school districts as spokespeople. And the last bit of this, and this is something that we'd love to see if any of you are already working on this and would love to partner, is just more youth and environmental student club engagement, because they have a different ear of the school district, and they can also be another avenue that we want to explore more. Obviously, they're not going to be technical experts on some of these issues, but at least we find that the biggest barrier is just getting like information out there. The technical piece can kind of come a little bit later, but just like getting someone to know that this funding is available and you need to prepare for it is like, in some cases, the biggest hurdle. So those are some of the things that we're working on, but always looking for partnership opportunities and ways to learn from others as well. So this has been really helpful. Thank you.
Great. All right, maybe we should start to, Serena, you want to 30 seconds, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to throw out, so I'm based in Arizona, and I've finally decided I'm going to start trying to leverage some of my personal relationships here from my past positions with school board members to try to get something going, because like the previous speaker said, school districts trust other school districts. So if we can get a win here amongst the school districts that have the ability to do it, solar, accessing IRA money, et cetera, leading to electrification, I'm going to try to do that. So Arizona is currently kind of on my personal radar.
Right on. Thanks. Okay, so maybe with the last couple of minutes, Sarah, I can try to just give a quick commercial, like back on our agenda. 3 projects that have been moving this fall. We're trying to build a database of projects. So again, if you have opportunities to share a spreadsheet or click in and, hey, I talked to a school, or encourage a school to identify themselves, that I think will help us all over time kind of see where the projects are, where we need to focus energy. Could also be really helpful as we be a communications asset as we get into the 2024 season, about being able to talk about where the IRA is benefiting schools. There's been some conversations around legal counsel for districts offline and technical assistance for districts offline. We put links to those conversation notes. If you're interested in engaging on that, I think reach out. And then I don't know if we have too much more time, but other issues or items for discussion. Carolina, to your last comment around wanting to connect with young people or opportunity, like some of us were on the Green New Deal for Schools mass call earlier this week, and they probably had 50 or 60 young people from around, the country. And those are, opportunities to make sure that Shiva and his crew are kind of aware of the work that, we are all doing, and finding ways to plug in. Sarah, did you add these B and C here, the Climate Master? You want to speak to those?
Yeah, I just saw that come across my email that Climate Master is hosting an event tomorrow on ground source heat pumps and the IRA. So if you have, someone who's ripe for some more learning, Riley, maybe your Midwest district, maybe some folks want to listen to that. Here's someone else talk about ground source heat. It won't be specific about schools, but it's going to be getting to the nitty gritty, I expect. And then just wanted to highlight that we did do a webinar to the extent, hearing from other districts. We profiled a superintendent, Dr. Monica Goldson from Prince George's County, on a webinar that we did about our HVAC paper. So we had a superintendent voice, and then we brought in IRA at the end. So that is an asset for those of you that want to share, hey, hear from the superintendent, and with a little IRA goodness at the end there. So feel free to use that in your travels.
Okay, so we are at time. Thank you everyone for sharing and participating and engaging today. Thank you, Riley, for prepping the case and sharing. Really appreciate that. Want to give a last plug for the database, trying to kind of keep having that be a thing that folks are thinking about. And then I think we sent out a calendar invite for maybe the 8th, but I heard a couple folks maybe couldn't make it. And I'm not sure how to poll the group, but if there was a reason to move it to the 15th as better, we thought we'd have one more of these calls this year, like mid-November. So I think the calendar invite went out for the 8th. If anybody wants to make a case like, hey, it'd be better for me to push it to the 15th, we could push it to the 15th. Otherwise, we'll just leave it where it is.
There's an Ed Spaces conference that overlaps. I don't know how many
Okay.
people might be going to that, but that is an overlap with the 8th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do a little thinking about that. We'll push back out the calendar invite either for the 8th or the 15th, and really appreciate everybody's time and participation today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.